Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Backstep. This is Ronnie K in New York, and the mustache with the man behind it, that's Tommy Hay out in New Mexico, and that other good-looking guy with the white shirt, that we'll get to him in a second. So, Tommy, what's going on, pal?
Summer showed up. It was 96 degrees yesterday, and of course, San Juan County, New Mexico suffered from two different structure fires. And hopefully everybody stayed hydrated, and things seem to have went well.
All right. That's good. It's good to hear. As long as we get everybody home in one piece after the call, right? That's what it's all about. Not much here. It warmed up a little bit, but we were talking before we went on the air. I was talking to Jack. The Northeast is like living in Seattle, where our producer Mark lives. It just rains here, man, all the time. The sun's out today, but we got 3 more days of rain coming. We had 3 days of rain behind us. It just doesn't stop raining here. So the landscape is lush.
I did see a text that there was a technical rescue going on at Fort Totten. Apparently, one of the FDNY EMTs fell, and they had to bring him up on a Stokes, it sounded like.
Was that today?
Yeah, that was this morning.
Well, my phone didn't go off for that one, so I didn't get it. I didn't get it. But in any event, hopefully he's okay, and we'll...
It sounded like they got him out of there, but I didn't realize there was areas there that you could fall.
Yeah, I guess so. And unfortunately, we had a homicide in the city. A young father threw his 2-year-old into the Bronx River, and they locked him up. And they found the kid near the Whitestone Bridge, right by Totten. They found the police boats found them by the bridge. So that's when you said that, I thought you were talking about that. But sorry, that's my other phone. And
1075.
All right. No, that was my personal, and it was a text. But I leave the other phone on, Jack, just so you know. My job phone stays on until the first 1075, so Tommy can hear it, and then I shut the phone off, all right? So that we don't get disturbed the rest of the show. So I leave it right over here. We'll see what happens. So as long as I mention Jack's name, what the heck? He's sitting there being very good, very well behaved. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the one and only, often imitated, never duplicated. That's Jack Murphy, former fire marshal, former deputy chief, code consultant, and fire protection guru worldwide. And today's episode of the Backstep Boys, we're going to be talking a little about code enforcement, fire codes. But don't turn this off when you hear that. Stay on the show, because we're going to discuss how the codes and standards directly affect your safety on the fireground. So stay tuned into this. Jack Murphy, welcome aboard, pal. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing well, brothers. How you doing? Yeah. So
good.
Again,
good. Glad to have you here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the invite. I appreciate it.
Glad to have you here. So I'd like to kick it off, Jack, if you don't mind.
Sure.
To talk about a little bit of history, like where all this stuff came from. I know there was a lot of codes. There was a Western Chiefs code at one time, and there was the code over here and the code over there. There was a South code, Southern code, Southern
right.
Building code, all kinds. So give us a little background on what happened here.
Basically, in the U.S., before the 1990s, we had 3 legacy codes in different regions. So they decided to get together and form one national code, like the Brits, national code going across. And my thing was that one of the driving forces is McDonald's starts building a building in California. By the time they go across the country, they go into X number of codes and different variations of things. So that was somewhat of a driving force. So we put that together, and in 2000, they rolled out the international codes, fire codes, building codes, and codes that go with that, mechanical codes, plumbing codes. But in order to get that together, like some of the codes would wash what I call watered down. So everybody brought into the thing. Like one code would be more stricter than the other. So they did that. So over that time, since 2000, we've been trying to lift things up in the fire code more than ever before. We're still not there yet. It's a process that once they have the national code, the states now can adopt it fully as given, or they can modify it. So that's the second layer. And the third layer is municipalities, large ones, the Chicagos, the LAs, the New Yorks. they modify that to meet their needs. If the 9/11, to bring in the code changes from New York City, the fire code was a little bit ancient. So we brought everybody in and we sat down and we said, as we looked at it in what they call comparing, let's do the building code. 1968 building code and the new code coming in. Some of those things in the 68 code were more restrictive than the code coming in, and we called it a legacy code. We're densely populated. So it's a work in progress. It continues that way. On the I code, you have the Firefighter Safety Council. They'll get together and from all parts of the country talk about what they would like to push through into the codes. And that's a balancing act, totally. The balancing act is that you're dealing with building construction officials, and the other thing is special interest groups. A lot of them are out there. So if we get something put in to the code, say like in 2012, it went through. In 2015, they're looking to take it out. Right? So you keep staying on top of things. Then you put the 2012 code in, you can modify that section in 15, 18, 20. You know what I'm saying? So those are called prescriptive codes. A lot of prescriptive codes, I hate to say it, are what I call tombstone legislation. You have these major events and people die. And now they're all getting on the bandwagon. Look at Grenfell in Europe. All right. The thing is that it's what we have. It's what the fire service knows. Great. Then there's another code called performance-based. These are like, the fire protection engineers, maybe architects, PEs. They'll come up and say, this says we can do this. And you're based on their knowledge of how that works. And what I want to tell everybody in the fire service, if we're not used to this a lot, but it says in the performance-based code, if they're going to do this, they have to hire an independent fire protection engineer for the fire department. That's your balance for what they're trying to do. Okay. So that's it basically in a nutshell. Then there's the NFPA side, which are all standards. Okay. But some municipalities, some states adopt NFPA 101, Life Safety Code, or NFPA 1. So it's you have to see what works for you. My thing is that if you're adopting the ICC stuff, stick with it. All right. You can't pick and choose. Here's an example. I adopted the IBC building code. Now I'm going to NFPA 1, which is the fire prevention code. They don't talk to one another. All right. At least in the ICC codes, they reference something else. So you're not wholly lined up with a book like this. Go over to the mechanical, go to the plumbing codes. You know what I'm saying? Those are the things that are out there. It's just a matter of getting firefighters, all right, not turning us off on things. All right. We're there for a reason. It's not a happy.
We'll get to that. We're going to talk about that because I think that the bulk of the brothers and sisters out there, they don't understand it. They weren't trained on it. They didn't get enough information.
They're only trained on it for an exam, promotional.
Yeah, get to the next rank. But we don't do a great job. I don't think any fire department does a great job in giving their new people the mindset and the understanding of the fire prevention activities that go on in their bureaus, in their own bureaus. We make it like in the city. We make an appearance at Proby School for 20 minutes, and we tell them about the bureau and what it is. And it's the day before they graduate. So that they're already gone, so to speak. But and then as time goes on, they get a little bit here and there. But we don't do a good job, I think, as a fire service nationally or even internationally to really drive home the purpose of the codes and standards and the important work that the inspection force does out there every single day. When in certain classes I teach, I ask them, who do you think is the expert on all the buildings in your response district? And most of the time they go, the chief. I said, no, chief doesn't know anything. I said, it's the fire inspector. Fire inspectors in and out of those buildings every year, twice a year, whatever. They know every inch of the town. They know every inch of the village. They in the basement, upstairs in the attic. I said, you want to talk to the fire inspector? Be nice to that guy. He was probably on the line for 30 years and now he's a little too old to fight fire. So he's doing something good. Take advantage of that guy and sit there. In our system in the city, it's evidently it's the biggest system, right, in the country, right? But as I get to speak to new battalion chiefs classes and new deputy chiefs classes, first question I asked the battalion chiefs, they were just captains. The first question I asked, I said, how many of you have ever seen the fire inspector come in to your firehouse? Because our inspectors have to sign out in the firehouse journals near their last stop for the day. Oh, yeah, we've seen the guy stop in. Yeah, they signed the book. How many times have you ever asked that guy, did you see anything interesting in my response area? No hands go up. I said, when have you offered that guy a cup of coffee on a 5-degree day? No hands go up. So the light starts to go on. They're at the battalion chief level, like, geez, we had a tool in our toolbox. We weren't using all of those years, So, and then little by little, the word will get out. And that's what we're doing now. We just kind of, and in the position I'm in currently, that's really the big advantage that I see is what I'm doing now.
In the graduate class at John Jay, all right, when I was teaching at the Rock, all right, I had a firefighter tell me that he just installed a boiler in his house. I said, oh, okay. Did you take out a permit? He goes, no. I says, you're in a codes class. I said, at least lie to me if you want. I didn't take out the permit. And I said to him, that's your protection. What do you mean? I know how to put it in. I'm a plumber. I don't care. You have to go, when you go to sell that house, they're going to ask you, where's the permit on that? I said, the house can't get sold. And if anything happens, right, if you don't have a permit, when I dealt with codes and they never took out a permit, I never went to court. All right. It's the owner's responsibility.
Yep. Yeah. Frankly, it happened to me. It happened just, Tom, I'll give you the mic in a sec. I put a new hot water heater in my house when I lived in Jersey. I didn't do it. I had a guy come in. Okay. But I never went to the town to take out the $5 permit. Okay. But he came in, reputable company, insured, blah, 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 did a nice job. When I went to sell the house, it came up as a lien. A $5 permit came up as a lien. And I went to town and I had all the paperwork, brought him everything, took out the permit, paid the $5, and I was on my merry way. But you're right. The permit system's there for a reason. It's there for a reason. It is. Tommy?
Thinking back to when I first became the fire marshal out here, I was ignorant as to what I lovingly refer to as the politics of fire. The city had a fire code, but it was probably 25 years old and had never been updated. And when we started making some moves around to switch from a uniform fire code to international fire code, we got a lot of pushback, which surprised me. But it was like the Home Builders Association didn't want to have anything to do with updating the codes. And that just kind of floored me because I was ignorant of the fact that there are those who don't think the same way we do when it comes to code enforcement.
Yeah, I agree. And you know what? We have a one-track mind. I heard somebody at the job recently say it. I won't tell you who or where they work, but somebody said at my job, we're fire and life safety, and the Department of Buildings, they might be fire, life safety, and helping to maintain the local businesses and helping the homeowners. And not that we don't want to help them, but we have a little bit different thought process and a little bit different track. They want to build safe buildings, the buildings departments around the United States, safe buildings is all them, but they're willing to do certain things that we won't. So when we have those meetings, right now the New York City Department of Buildings is in their code cycle for 2026. So we have a lot of meetings going on with committees and stuff or whatever. And we go in there with that one mindset and they look at us and they're going, oh, like, gee, what, but they want to kind of like, they're looking to meet the folks halfway in the city. And like for us, there's no halfway because we've seen too much things happen. We've seen too many bad things. So
the thing I always bring up to the building owners and property managers, I'm here for a reason, not to find violations, to maintain your building in a little safer manner. So I communicate that to them. And when I go in, and if I did an inspection, I never told them, as I put the violations down, that was in order. I expect this done. If they had to order something, new fire door, you give them time, all that other stuff. Anything you go in there, and any fire company go in there, you see blocked exits, chains on doors, forthwith, before I leave, that's being taken care of. So it's just a matter of balancing it. But every time that I had a major event or something, and the press comes, the property manager team or the building owner says, we meet the minimum code. Yes, they do. It is just what you said. It's the minimum code. But it's not what we've been telling them what to do over the years. You keep defeating us out there on things. And that's why they say you're too much involved in this stuff. You're too passionate. Well, we see all these crazy things that go on, and we're trying to prevent that.
Right. When I was a field inspector, I don't know, 150, 175 years ago, my thing was when I would go into the buildings, whether it was a factory or some manufacturing, or it could have been a mom and pop shop or something bigger. When the guy would kind of like cringe when I walked in the door, I'd say to him, just let me ask you one question from the outset. He'd say, sure. I'd say, how long can you afford to be closed? How long can you afford to be shut down if you had to clean up after a fire or rebuild or whatever? And the guy says, I can't be closed longer than a week. He says, because my customers, they're going to go overseas and get it for half price. He says, I have loyal customers, so they're staying with me. But if I trip on the sidewalk and crack my knee and I'm shut, they're going to go to another country and get it, for cheaper. So I used to put it in there. I said, all right, so that's why I'm here. I'm here to help you stay open. And it might cost you a couple of bucks, but you'll get it back because you're going to stay open, and then whether it was, recharge the extinguishers or get your sprinkler guy in to fix it or whatever it was, So I always try to put it in their terms. And I think it's a good way to put it because if you're kind of meeting them mentally on the same plane.
Yes. And the thing is that, for me, I'm a communicator with people. This is the intent and everything else. When I come back for the reinspection, if nothing is done, and a lot of young people don't know this, John Wayne comes around. I'm a different guy. Totally different. You did nothing.
Wait a minute. You don't have the height to be John Wayne. Sorry, Jackie.
Yeah,
but
right? But the idea is that if you look at the code, let's just say there was something that it was a violation of $5,000, then and they rectified it. If I go back again and it's the same thing, I give them the $5,000 fine. I don't have to give them another reinspection. We were told you to take care of that. You did. Now it's back again. So You have to understand how the codes work in a process for the end. Where are the end users? Where are the respondents? All right?
No doubt.
That's it.
No doubt. We want to listen, at the end of the day, here's what we tell our new fire inspectors, and we continue to reinforce. And we got it, by the way, Jack, we got a class coming in middle of July. We got 55 more guys coming in through school.
Oh,
so good. Here's what we tell them. We have to get the people safely out of the building and get the firefighters into the building and back out of the building safely as well. That's your job. Make sure the people can get out and make sure our guys and gals can get in and get out. Period. Tommy.
I'm curious, Jack, as to your thoughts. The NFPA big on the consensus making of the standards and stuff. Are you starting to see more fire suppression folks getting involved in some of those conversations, or is the special users, if you would, just fire prevention folk?
I see them when it comes to stuff that they have to use, like clothing and rigs and things like that. On the prevention side, but not as much. But there are some out there, and the whole idea is, if I can inject here, NFPA, the National Fallen Firefighter Strategy 5 is codes and standards. We're trying to encourage fire companies, people on fire suppression, to get more involved here. All right. We need your voices. On the ICC side, they can vote remotely. New York City, you have 12 votes. In my little town, I had 4. So I can vote remotely for these things. You hook up with the Fire Service Coalition on the ICC side, all right? And you see what they're going through, a whole litany of codes and everything. You put in what you think you want to do that. You rally the troops around you. You pass that. You get it out of that cycle, and then you push it into the code cycle on the floor to push it up. All right. So there's a process out there. On the NFPA side, it's more the committee, and the committee there is not all fire service. It could be. Let's just pick on apparatus. It could be firefighters. Could be apparatus people. Could be other things there. They put a mixture in things. Any codes on the NFPA side, like that with structural engineers, architects, things like that. End users, fire companies, fire alarm companies, things of that nature. It's a good give and take on things. And then insurance companies get thrown in. And I'm good with that at times. At other times, I'm not. Because they all preach this stuff on the insurance side. And then when you say to them, well, if I do all these things, can I get like a 5% reduction? No. So you're trying to do encouragement on all ends. Everybody's got a buy-in here on things. So it's...
Jack, you make a great point, with the NFPA committees. And I'm an NFPA guy. I mean, I think we all are, and they do some great work. But a lot of times, the suppression guy that Tommy talks about, or even the fire prevention guy, he's outgunned. I'll give you an example. Years ago, when Bill Manning had the magazine, had Fire Engineering, the new version of NFPA 1123 come out with fireworks displays. That's one of my gigs, right? Fireworks. So I read the new version, and I'm going, holy cow. So I go back to the first page, is always the committee. So there's one fire service guy in that committee, and he's a deputy chief out of Dallas, Texas. And the rest of the committee is all fireworks companies. It's the industry. The industry's steering the whole thing. So it's like, all right, this guy he's all by himself. And so I'm talking to Bill a few days later, and we're talking about stuff. And I said, yeah, I just looked at this. I says, I don't know, maybe this guy was sleeping, right? So, of course, in his wisdom, in his next his next editorial, he writes that, we're sleeping at the NFPA meetings, and he cites 1123. 2 days later, I get a call from the deputy chief because Bill gave me up when he called Bill. And I'm apologizing, doing a moonwalk like Michael Jackson. I'm walking backwards, but I said to him, what the hell happened? After a while, we just came down to brass tacks. And he said, Ronnie, I was outgunned.
Yeah, and like Tom said, you're trying to encourage, you're trying to encourage more participation from the suppression.
Yeah. Six major fireworks companies, and they outgunned them. Whatever they voted on, he couldn't get anything that,
Right.
That's why, that's the urgency of being there.
The consensus making is, in theory, is probably the best way to approach it. But we were very tongue-in-cheek when I was sitting on a committee that if you use NFPA standards or eat sausages, you should never see how either one of them are put together. But I like to think in my heart of hearts that the end product sometimes has some reality plugged into it.
Yeah, it's just, on the ICC side, those only building construction and fire code people can vote. On the NFPA side, it's the industry plus the fire service. So two different things. They when that thing came nationally, I mentioned up front, they tried to do that, but the voting things were going in two different directions.
Yeah. So the consensus standards, I mean, the concept is great, but if the playing field's not even, it's never going to be even, you know? And again, like Jack said, the ones that affect the firefighters directly, like turnout gear, fire apparatus, they're all in. But what our brothers and sisters don't realize is that all the rest of those, you have to be in. You have to be all in. We have a guy now. We have a lieutenant in our job. He's a lieutenant in a truck, and he's in fire prevention 1-2 days a week. Jack, you know who the guy is. He's a refrigeration expert.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but now they're coming back with flammable refrigerants.
Yeah.
Flammable refrigerants are on their way back into the world. Yeah. So he's taking that, and he's like leading the charge, and they had a couple of meetings, and he's working with UL and all that stuff, so we could try to get a handle on it. But those are the little things the average firefighter is not concerned with until they get to that big complex of buildings, that high rise or that hospital. Yeah. And there's a flammable gas fire coming out of the air conditioning system. I'm like, what the hell's going on? And
just look at the window units now. The small window units, they have a red label and a caution label, flammable liquid. All right. Yeah. And now that's a different fire coming out that window once that gas.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, the portable and air conditioners and refrigerators too.
Right. Yeah.
So they're going back to the flammable stuff again. It was
Yeah,
like,
the thing now is that things are changing so quick. Obviously all this EV stuff, everything else. We need the industry to step back a little. They keep throwing things out, and we become the solution seekers. Really, that's not my job. All right, why can't you have a full-scale test on these things? Oh, we only do a partial. No, it's called a full-scale test. We're dealing with Glenn Corbett that the fire testing in products and buildings is 100 years old. It's outdated.
Yeah, the Steiner tunnel doesn't apply anymore, right?
And it's throwing red flags up there, but no one's grabbing onto anything. Let's at least say, grab a flag and let's at least take a look at this again. 100 years, we're still dealing with this?
Yeah, I talked about the Steiner tunnel with Glenn a couple of times, and he said, think about where it came from, why it was developed, and how they used it. He says, it's outdated. He said, we can't be still hanging our hat on a Steiner tunnel test. It doesn't necessarily apply.
Yeah, and the thing here is that, I mentioned more fire companies get involved. If I encourage them on the ICC side is open up Chapter 5. It's called Fire Service Features.
Let's talk about fire. Let's talk about fire a little bit.
Yeah. Obviously, it's the little things, the apparatus access, key boxes, a fire command center. How about radios? Emergency response communication radios. When we brought this up on the floor, there was no objection from a 1 and 2 family house. If your radio didn't work, you needed something in there, bidirectional cable. It's out there. It's in the new construction, and then people move it into existing building codes too. So the thing is that they have to have a better understanding of this stuff, really. And building systems and everything, it's all over the page. It really is. You look at small buildings, 1 and 2 family, you're going into these mega box stores and everything. You're going into, look at the skyline in New York. They're super tall buildings. They have issues now with some of these. They passed everything, but you hear all the cables rattling in the elevator car going up constantly all night. How about a rubber chute comes down onto the 21st floor? When we were in the building, I won't tell you who I was in. I was in the retired 8th Battalion chief. I said, Chief, how come it stops on 21? Usually they're in the basement or the street level. And the guy says to me, well, that's where the last residential floor is. The people in the building are complaining. The amount of garbage coming down in a bag, when it hits the bottom, it's boom. They're getting boom sounds all over the place. So here's my question to the chief. I said, Chief, how many compactor fires you have? Oh, we have a lot. It's suppressed. Yes, the compactors are suppressed. Okay. All right, compactors on 21. How do I get it downstairs to the loading dock? I have to take it out of the suppressed chamber, all right, put it on a cart, get it in the elevator. My question is, does the elevator guy stay with that or sends the car down first? We have fires that, with mixture of things, self-ignite. What if you had something like that in the car? So these are the things they should ask us questions about. And yeah, they might object. But these are our interpretations of problems. It's like the elevators. We've been talking about all our elevators all these years. All right. We finally got a car that's big enough and tall enough in new codes to get a full company in, 5 or 6 firefighters. If you go into residentials, you can't. So those are some of the things that are positive on the side, but it takes time. And I think we started on this. The 4 guys that did this, they stayed on it for 8 years. O'Donoghue and O'Donnell, Quentin Maber, guys like that. I'm sorry, I forget the guy in Washington. 7 years working on this stuff, right? Just with the elevator people. And those are ASME. That's not even the building of the fire codes. You have all those other standards there that they adopted. All right. One of the few things that I like in the I codes is that if NFPA 13, they don't touch. NFPA 14, they don't touch. NFPA 72 and 70, they don't touch. Electrical code, just bring it over, adopt it as a reference. So those are some positive things on that side. So
right. But I you bring up chapter 5. I'm gonna reach over here in a second. Hold on. Look what I got.
Yeah.
All right.
I know you can't see all mine are down there.
Yeah. So chapter 5. Interestingly, how many times you ever open up a book looking for something and you actually open to that page? Yeah. This is a miracle, folks. You know what this is? This is the Jack Murphy code thing coming through the TV and into the screen, right into the book. So it talks about new buildings, old buildings, apparatus access. The firefighters of this country have to be concerned about fire apparatus access. And I'm picking stuff out of 5 now because we want to make our point with the men and women who are watching this broadcast. The 4 or 5 of them, right, Tommy? There's at least 4 or 5. I'm thinking, it's without our wives. To say you need to be part of the process. Apparatus access is important for us. So there's a section on that turning radius or turning radii, if you will. How do you turn the rig around in a block, in a cul-de-sac, or at a dead end? You got right now they build a subdivision with a dead end, like in Staten Island. It's the only place you can really build any private homes anymore. Just about. It's a cul-de-sac, and then our city planning desk looks at that and looks at radii and all that stuff for ladder trucks and says, you got to build your cul-de-sac this big to get that rig to come around and go back out and take the next run in if they get, so that access and all of that it's fire lanes are part of that too. One of the biggest problems we had recently was the dining sheds in the street. That was a problem for 4 years until we made them take them all out. Now they can put them back in. They need DOT permit because it's in the street, and it can't be wider than I think it's 6.5 feet, which is the average car. All right, so they can put them up, and then they got to take them down again in November. We're done in November because for 4 winters, trying to move snow in Manhattan is impossible normally.
Yeah.
Now we added another 10,000 little houses on the street. It was impossible. So that kind of access, and then we had one instance where a truck company pulled up on a fire emergency, and they were between like 2 of those sheds, and the guys couldn't get out. It was that tight, the block. They couldn't open the doors to get out of the jump seat. So that really brought everything to a kind of a height. So the next section, building and rooftop access. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, you spend most of your career on the roof of a building. Let's face it. Okay. You want to know about, we did a nice job in the city with the fire code stuff. You got to have a north-south path now. You can't just throw junk on the roof. We got a rooftop access small unit in fire prevention that goes and looks at that before they install equipment. Okay. We can afford to do that. A lot of small fire prevention bureaus can't. We can. But you want to have a say in what the roof looks like. You spend your whole life up on the roof. Where am I going here? Rooftop. 4 pages on rooftop. Identifying the premises. You get it. So dispatcher calls and says you're going to 514 Main Street. You got 512, 540. Where the hell's 14? So just identifying buildings. And then the next section is keys and key access. I know, Jack, you've done a yeoman's job in the high-rise world with keys, and the city has a master key and all that, and with access to stuff. But and the country's not doing bad because they're using the Knox system. I don't sell Knox. I'm not pushing it, but it's a system.
Yeah, it's a system. It's a good system. Again, I don't know what system. We just had 2 jobs in the Midwest, high-rise jobs, and they couldn't get the lock cap off at all, even with the key. And then they had a hard time getting it off with the wrench too, the big monkey wrench. So, but the idea is that when I talked to someone with the National Sprinkler Association, he said in NFPA 14 there's no maintenance for that cap. So that's a black hole. Okay, so they're looking at that. Now here's a big black hole. Okay, New York City. I just put this on Fire Engineering maybe about a month ago. Black hole for gas meters. All right. New York City is the only one. I checked all the national codes. All they say protected from physical barrier impairment from a car or something like that. I go into a building. I have 150 meters, gas meters. It's in the shape of an E, guys. 2 here, go around the other side, 2 more here, 2 more here, and in the back over there. 150
like
meters.
banks. With banks, right?
The alarm comes in. Now, let's just look at that. The alarm comes in, you have a major gas leak, and you're trying to find apartment 1405. It is not in sequential order. It's the first meter is 1102, next meter 501, next meter 807, next meter 105.
Are you kidding?
No, I'm serious. That's in a high-rise building. Let's look at the mid-rise buildings, lightweight wood. On the outside, the same thing. They're there, but they have a tag on it. And you got to look around the back of it. It's a brass tag. You can't read the number. You can't. Then if you look, some of them put magic marker on there. That ain't permanent. Now you go and you approach the gas company. Oh, we're not required to do that. We just bring it to the building. You talk to the plumbers. We just pick up the line and run with it. So now you get that call in that apartment. And now you can't find it. You got to shut the whole building down. So let's do this in the winter. All right, shut the whole building down. Wait a minute. We got to light pilot lights for the stove, the furnace, the hot water heater, and the dryer. So magnitude, what do you want? If my math is right, is 600 of these things. You have to relight. You're going to be there for a while. So the whole idea is you got to communicate this forward. And I'm trying to bring this up to the next code cycle. That's my mission.
Yeah.
As they come through. Once they get done with this, I'm going to see if we can. But New York City, when I went there, Ron, it said anything more than 12 must be in sequential order. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Great. I want to stay with 5 a little bit. Water supplies, fire protection, and utility equipment identification access. That's what you're talking about. Utility identification. Is that your thing? Natural gas, shut-off tools, utility identification.
Right.
Right. Okay. In-building auxiliary radio system. That's our aux. So that's a post 9/11, and the current, from what I understand, Jack, the current. Tommy, if you're not familiar, aux is auxiliary radio communication system for high-rise buildings. It's a post 9/11 thing where they have a kind of a booster system in the building, and it's not working because the problem is it can't be on all the time. If it's on all the time, it'll interfere with the building next door.
Yeah.
So we're about to launch aux 2.0 in the city. They got a task force on that. I guess, Jack, do you know those guys? They're working as a battalion chief and a couple of guys.
Okay.
They're pinpointing every single building that has it, and they're looking at it and all that stuff.
I like it, Ron. I totally agree with you. In buildings that I had, I had a complex with 20 buildings. We had no bi-directional cable for the fire department. So our thing was, give me 6 portable radios at the fire command center on trickle charge. All my radios work for maintenance and everything else. People were walking over, support staff, but not for the fire department. The other thing too is that, with the just the bi-directional cable. My thing now that I said to everybody, for these all hazard threats, I'm not in charge. The PD is an active shooter. How do their radios work? So do we start looking at a radio system for both agencies? So, it could be a win-win.
Yep. So another section, high-rise megastructure fire operations. We got to be worried about that if you have that. Large cities have it. Access to elevator shafts. Rooftop solar panel installations. So that's a piece of Chapter 5. That's the New York City version of the International Fire Code. But that's just a small piece of what's going on out there in the world. So we want to kind of, I think we want to drift into, the value of the codes and standards. And, somebody posted something recently that a firefighter had a button on his helmet, NFPA with a red circle and a slash through it. Like, I hate the NFPA. I don't know why that firefighter hates the NFPA. Maybe he's anti-codes and standards because if we didn't have that, there'd be more fires and he can go to more fires. I don't know what the guy's thinking was, but let's talk about. I'd like to talk about the value of codes and standards, inspections, and not just walking through and taking a mark and ticking off. But the real value that's this guys, like it or not, ladies and gentlemen, all of this stuff is tied in to your health and safety on a fire ground. It just is. And I will argue that point till the end with anybody. This is tied into your health and safety on the fire ground. This stuff helps you survive the fire ground.
Ron, you were the one that enlightened me to one of my favorite sayings that I credit to you is that fire prevention saves firefighters' lives. And
I had that on my email for many years. Many years I had that under my email thing. Yeah, and it does. It does. At the hard part, and I know, Jack, you're going to jump in, the hard part is trying to convince the men and women on the line that that's the absolute truth, because it is. Jack, do you know, is there anything out there that's going on that's helping that cause that you know of?
Yeah, that's what I said before, guys. What do you call it? I lost the word there. Strategy 5, codes and standards. That's the thing. We're trying to get more people involved. We're pushing the envelope on that. All right. It went dormant once these things came out, that 16 initiatives. It went on the side. Community risk reduction jumped the gun. They have a great program out there. They have a national thing. We're trying to do the same thing and duplicate what they're doing on the CRR side, to the firefighter side. The other thing, too, is that, you get all these, for me in the city, dealing with a lot of promotions, they have no place to put some of these officers. So they go downtown to headquarters. Time out here. I said, time out. 6 months to a year. All right. You're a new officer. I don't care what rank you are. You got to learn something. And when you get up to that senior staff thing, you're going to appreciate your time down there and what these people do. All right. And it isn't the graveyard for firefighters that, light duty or something like that. You have a lot of people in your department that I have the greatest respect for. Anybody who came into when I was the fire director at the hospital for the laboratories, the guy had a chemical engineering degree. How's that? A lot of cities don't have that. But the idea is that these things help us in the long run. And he picks out little things. I could read these chemicals. He goes, well, this can't be in this refrigerator. It's not explosion proof. How's that? Get an explosion proof refrigerator. So, and Ron, you dealt with that with Merck and everything. All these things are out there. Yeah. The more you have this information, all right, that you help the first responders is a blessing. It really is.
Listen, Jack, I'm going to embarrass you for a moment here, but for those of you who don't know that are watching the cast, K by G, that's the Jack Murphy original. Know before you go. Yeah. K by G, KBYG. Know before you go. It's Jack. It was so simple. It was genius, my friend, because it is. It is, Ron.
It is, but it's frustrating. It's frustrating. You're out here trying to do something on building intelligence, and they have every excuse in the world. All right. I just picked up on how many leadership classes are out there. And I said this to somebody at the recent convention. Yeah. I said, what kind of a leader are you if you go into a building and you don't know anything about it, particularly target buildings? You're a leader. Do the military do that? No. So the idea is that it's there for a reason. All right. And my thing I said on the 1620 committee for pre-incident planning, that morphed into 1660 pre-planning, emergency preparedness, things of that nature. And the idea is that it's there for a reason, and it doesn't take much. All right. I don't know if you can reach around here. I'll bring it up. Can you
Look
see
at that
this?
beauty?
You see that?
Look at that beauty.
All right.
Who's his dad, Jack?
It's my dad.
Your dad's.
All right. Here's the thing. Here's what I tell the class. All his knowledge, he taught me about things with the apparatus and hose and everything else. No one left me anything about all the buildings they went in. Nobody. You need to leave a legacy base. We are losing the game with the industry. They are beating us up on lighter and lighter stuff. All right. And we can't afford it. You can't read the building outside. It's a typical 5 now. In the building I'm looking at is a type 4 residential building. It's 761 feet long. All right. On the top, they built an extension. It's cold C-joists, cold form steel. It ain't heavy timber. You can't read that from the outside. And the mezzanines in this building are all cold form steel. Here's a little problem. In between each apartment is steel joists, all right? Someone come in with the fire department radios. The radios didn't communicate. This building's it's only 4 stories tall. The radios don't work. It's all interference. Right. Again, we need more people to get involved in this stuff, and I'll continue doing this till you put me in the grave. I'm still trying to get everybody to stop making excuses on not K by G, period. After this, put up my thing, we'll have a conversation. I'm willing to help any department to do this stuff, all right? Do 25, we can't do it. I got 100 buildings. What's your target building?
Yeah,
how about
what your target has.
What your target has. Just stop. Yeah. You can't keep making excuses up. And you got to get over things that don't work anymore, all right? And go with new stuff. Just give me information. Going out the door, you can get your size up right away. Jack, we, as you know, we're doing a lot of stuff in the city, and there's more. There's always more to do. Yeah. There's always more to do. But we're making an attempt. I mean, that's for me, that's huge. And if we could do it with our system, with the size of the city and the size of the fire department, we can make an attempt that anybody else can do it. I mean, if we could do it, they could do it, Yeah. And this stuff, guys, we have all these kids out there that are geniuses in programs and everything, They have the capability of doing this a lot quicker than they think, and it's just been dormant in a lot of these departments for years, living off the old system. Yeah, and you know what else? You touched on something about we got smart kids. We do. I just finished a 6-month study with a group. I had 4 engineers from technology management. I had a firefighter who's a PE. He's a stamped PE. He's 5 years in the job. He's just getting out of. He's just past Proby, and he's in the truck in the Bronx, and he's a PE. We found this kid. He does some part-time work in the city planning unit, and I put him onto this mass timber thing. We were looking at mass timber for the building code cycle, and the research he did and the stuff he came up with was like mind-blowing. So you look around your own fire departments out there, you're going to have some of that talent. And you know what? Statistically, we got more college graduates than we ever had before in the fire service. There's a lot of brain power in fire departments around this country. There's, like you said, Jack, no excuses, man. Those are just excuses. We all have little nuggets in our department, every one of them. Yeah. Yeah. So just got to find it, and because there's also discussions now that I'm hearing from they want to start to poll the entire fire department, and okay, you got we have 10,500 on the line. There's probably a couple of guys that know how to weld. There's probably a couple of guys that know how to fix a car. A couple of guys that can do electrical work, plumbing. We want to know where their talent is, because when things come up, you want to be able to tap those guys and say, "Hey, we understand you're an expert." One of the guys at the academy, his side job, he was a dentist. It's a side job. I love it. We have lawyers too. A dentist. Yeah, lawyers we got. I do that on weekends. Okay. In my last fire department in Connecticut, it was a small department, as you know. Yeah. You came to see me one time, remember? I had an attorney. I had a fire protection engineer. Okay, these guys were officers. They were engineers on their day off. They were lawyers on their day off, and then I got a second lawyer into the job. So, there's a lot of talent in the fire service. I remember when I was a kid going to John Jay when Charlie Ryan was around. Were you around when Charlie Ryan was around over there? No. Did you know Charlie? No. Okay. He was the department chair. He was a deputy in the city, and in the 70s. And he said, and one day in the class, because he taught a class also, he said, you can get anything fixed or consulted on in any firehouse in New York City. Yeah. And I would take that and spread it out right across the world, because you have the people from all walks of life with all kinds of different talents. I remember walking in the firehouse as a kid one afternoon riding my bike down there when I was a buff. I'm still a buff. But I walked in there, I was 15 years old, and I heard a guy playing a guitar and singing,
and he was in the house watch. He had house watch duty, and he was writing out his charts for his band. The guy had a wedding band, and I had, years later, I ended up playing with his band a couple of times. Ended up drumming for the guy.
Yeah.
But now there's all kinds of talent out there. But Jack, going back to what you're talking about, these are just excuses. The men and women on the line have to get involved with this stuff.
The value of things I see when the companies do BI, building inspection, all right? The value of that. And for me, when they came to me, let's get a cup of coffee to do in the cafeteria, some companies, others, no, get the coffee, we're gone. I take them up to a floor, and I just stand them there, and I go, tell me the building ahead of me, the building behind me, to your left and to your right. I said, once you know that, I said, then we can go down and I'll buy you cake. And the whole idea is to get them to say, I'm not here for you on the event. All right? So when you have buildings that are interconnected, like 20 buildings, what building you're walking to? Little things. How about a box to go to this complex? Was one box in Sarrington, New York. The security used to run out and say, 2 blocks south, make a left. Then we came along, me working with O'Hagan, and made, at that time, 5 municipal boxes. You got clusters of buildings. It's unraveling these things, all right? It's the private side that Jim Murtaugh always said that helps the public side. So you have to get in a relationship with these people, particularly if you're dealing with a manufacturing place in your town. You better know where everything is.
Yeah, I agree, and it's inspection, it's pre-emergency planning. That's the other forgotten chore. Nobody wants to go out and pre-plan. Ladies and gentlemen, pre-planning is for your own personal health and safety, and battle planning goes right with it.
That is the important piece of that. And Jack, I was going to ask you about Chapter 4 in the IFC as to how much guidance that provides for fire departments looking to either improve or start doing pre-planning.
What Chapter 4 is, Tom, is a lot of things on plans, emergency plans, in that sense. Pre-planning is, I'm trying to think now, I'm getting confused. 1620 is pre-planning in the NFPA. It says there. It is in the section, Ronnie, if you look it up while I'm talking about it. It is in there. On the planning side, what they need to look at, Tom, are EAPs, these all hazard threats. We plan a lot for fire, but we don't plan a lot for all hazard threats. And in these all hazard threat, in a fire area, in a residential, they're sheltering in place first. If not, if it's getting out of hand, I drop them down 1 or 2 floors. In a all hazard threat, it might put them in building relocation, shelter in place. Then I'm going to something else as this event unfolds. And reason why you have building systems there. Anybody know how to run a firefighter smoke control system on a panel? No, it's connected to the HVA system. All right. And Jerry Tracy said, one chief said to him, "Well, I leave that to the building engineer." His best comment was, "Well, that's the C shift working." He says, "They know nothing. You're the chief. You should be aware of this." Before I left the job I had the fire alarm company write it down, put it in the panel. This is how you operate it. Fire alarm panels, having a big discussion on that. You had this little window of opportunity to read. That's it. Is that the thing you saw before you left the house or after you left the house? How do you get this thing that's current? Where do you press the button to go down? Fire alarm panels are all over the place. Different manufacturers, different buttons, different this. And they go through cycles like everything else. Every 10 years or 10 years of modifying things. All right. Then at the end, they're not making the product. So a lot of buildings have what I call Band-Aids. Let that work for a while. Put that, you know what I'm saying? So it's so much more out there for the firefighter to have a better understanding about, particularly panels.
Yeah, so Tommy, in terms of Chapter 4, emergency planning and preparedness, that's really for the buildings to develop their emergency plans. But hand in hand, it's also upon us to work with them if they need assistance doing it, and learning what their plan is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you got an Amazon, you have an Amazon, right? Every Amazon building is 8 billion square feet, right? And they have an emergency plan for evacuation, for an active shooter, for a fire, for a hazmat release. The local fire department in that neighborhood has to understand what that plan is. It has the occupancy plan has to match the emergency response plan at the same time. Okay, so let's say we're coming in and we're stretching lines and going in 3 different doors, and that might be what they wrote in their plan. Take these 3 exits out and dump the building, and now we're swimming upstream like a salmon. We can't get through. So
the other thing, Tom,
that chapter 4 is emergency planning for the occupants, but we have to be in tune with it. That's the key.
Two things, Tom. One, those people who adopted NFPA 1, all right, it's in there, emergency planning. And they also talked about them in an electronic format, okay? On the IFC side, it's very small. It's in Section 508. It's on the Fire Command Center. It's called the Building Information Card, BIC. All right, it's only there for bigger buildings. All right, so we're trying to get that on the IFC side to all buildings. At least the NFPA opened up when we worked on the committee. It's for all buildings, no matter what size. All right. When I was a fire marshal, I was a loose leaf. I had a loose leaf in the chief's car, a 3-ring binder, and the first 2 engine going out of all the buildings I had in my community that I had to do that were a threat. Right. It wasn't as sophisticated as the stuff today, but at least it was something there for that. So it's just has to be put out there a lot more, particularly on the IFC side.
Yep. And you know what? I think the overall, as we're talking about all this stuff, the overall, I think that the driving thing behind it is the boss has got to get in the boat first. The fire chiefs of this nation, you know, we have the IAFC and we have all these big chiefs and a lot of county chiefs organizations and there's state chiefs organizations. This lands on the desk of the fire chief. I think this is Ron's opinion. I think it lands on the desk of the chief, and he has to go in and start to reinforce the importance of this. I'll never forget. I was working at Mohegan at the time in Eastern Connecticut, and they got a new chief in New Britain. I can't think of his name right now, but he came from the UK. He was a British guy. Guy from Britain went to New Britain. All right, go figure that out, right? So he went there. I think he spent 5 or 6 years, and then he went to the feds, to the Hazardous Materials and Pipeline Administration. But real nice guy. Met him at a couple of state chiefs meetings. But he came with that European thing that fire prevention is first. Okay, in a lot of places outside the U.S., fire prevention first. So smoke detectors, fire drills. His guys, they were having a revolution, that they were going to hang him from the yardarm. And he very slowly and very calmly instilled to them, this is public fire safety. This is why we're here. And it's going to be good for us too. And he won them over. It took him a while. He won them over. And he had his companies going out and putting smoke detectors into people's apartments who needed them, you know, and everything related to that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. In one of my classes, I throw up a picture of snowflakes, and I put circles around it. Not all of them, but say each building is a different snowflake. And then on the top is a bottle of Heinz 57 ketchup. And my slogan is, you can't play catch up on a building when you get there. Time is of the essence.
You can't play catch up, huh?
Well,
that's the best you could do.
Yeah,
you should have hired me. I could have gave you something funnier than that. You know, that's just medium, Jack. But you know,
that's okay. Right. I'm a rejected Jay Leno. What can I tell you?
Well, I think you're hanging out with Tracy too long. I think that's your problem. You're hanging out with Tracy too much. You know. But, you know, while we're on Tracy for a second, you talked about him before. You know, Tracy's he left a great reputation in the city, man. The guys that worked with him, you know, if you read Frank Lieb's book, you know, Lieb tells a great story about when they were in the squad. He was driving Jerry in the squad, and they're coming back from a job 3:00 in the morning. They got their brains beat out, and Jerry sees a new style roll down gate on a closed store. And tells the chauffeur, pull over. Frank was driving. Says to Frank, pull over. And he made the guys get off the rig. They said, what are we doing, Cap? He says, this is a brand new, you ever see this door before? No. They stood there and they didn't make noise and have a drill, but they had a verbal drill for 45 minutes, 3:00 in the morning, all sheeted up. That's Jerry's legacy. Well, he did that all the time. Training, inspections. I had a long talk with him about the cruise ships coming into the west side of Manhattan. When he was the captain in Fort Truck, he took his guys down to the when there was a cruise ship in, they went down to the water and said, okay, what are we going to do with this monster if it goes on fire? They'd meet with the ship's forces. They meet with the captain of the boat. That's the stuff. That's the stuff that this is made of, and all of this and this inspection, fire code enforcement involvement is part and parcel to it.
And just on that note, if you're on the rig going down the street, you see a construction dumpster, stop. What's going on in that building?
Yeah.
Right. Is the building still occupied while they're doing this major construction work in it?
As you know, we have our CDA unit in fire prevention from the Deutsche Bank fire. It was stood up after Deutsche Bank. For those of you who don't know, after Deutsche Bank in 2007, fire prevention has a construction, demolition, and abatement unit. Right now, we got 700 construction sites going on in the 5 boroughs, and not just in Manhattan. I mean, you go walk through Manhattan, there's a crane up every 10 feet. But all the boroughs, they're doing construction everywhere, and it's finding things. The buildings, the way we set up the program is up to 75 feet. Right. The local company, administrative company, does that inspection. After that, our CDA guys, or if it's coming down, it's the other way. But everybody's in this together, the pressurized standpipes and all that other stuff. So,
and the other thing too is if you just look at the thing with the mid-rise lightweight wood construction, residential, a lot of them under construction are just burning down, and and now you have them occupied. I encourage the fire departments to get into these buildings and take a look at them. All right. One of the things with the great late Bill Guston, me, Glenn, and I think James Johnson had a panel discussion at the FDIC. And one of the things we brought up is that when the alarms go off in this building and you're chasing the bells and whistles, where the hell is the smoke coming from? All right. You're on the clock. If you can't find this pretty quick, you got to dump the building. The other thing is keep someone posted at the fire panel. All right. And if you go down the hall in the halls and now I got to keep poking holes to find it. Well, we tell them, can you give me an access panel in the ceiling? I can open and look. You know what I'm saying? How about when the building goes up, they put, the hi-hats, I call them hi-hats that recessed into the ceiling. All right. Like the globes. All right. That gives off a lot of heat there. Now you have a void space up there with a magnified ignition source. You think the construction people will put sheetrock in and put the light below it. Little things. Another little thing, and I want to say this to every fire department out there. If this place is going up in your area, all right, and you'll see 3 what I call cinder block voids, shafts going up, elevator 2 stairs, all right? It's only required as it goes up to have a full staircase and only 1 chairfoot. That's number 1. Did anyone out there, the industry of all people, come up and say, hey, what if we put a scaffolding on the outside of the building as temporary stairs? How's that for the construction people to get out? The fire in Charlotte, they were cut off. They were on the phone saying we're trapped. Stop pushing this thing down the road. The industry's got to come up with resolutions.
Yeah.
Period. Yep. Talk to us more.
I agree.
Right? And
yep.
I don't want to say what's going to happen down the road with these buildings in 20 years.
Yeah, well,
it's a different thing.
Time will tell.
It's tough.
So you said before, Jack, the clock is ticking. My good friend Ken Scandariato, he was the chief of Norwich, Connecticut. He said, we don't fight fire, we fight time. We fight time. That's what he said. We fight the clock.
Right. And again, to the fire service, the fire companies, the architect and the engineers are there 2 years. They're gone. The property manager and us inherit everything.
Absolutely. And we tell that when we meet with the Department of Buildings.
Right.
We're talking about strengthening the building code for construction.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
said, listen, you guys give a certificate of occupancy, and the engineering staff, they're done, they're on to their next gig. We're stuck with the building. We're stuck with it.
Yeah.
And that's true anywhere. So you folks that are watching, after the building's up and the building code people, construction people, engineers, they're all done, we're stuck with it for the rest of our lives. So we got to take a stake and an interest here. As we're winding down, Tommy, do you have a role for this month?
Yes, I do.
Jack, we usually honor our LODDs in between our, and then we'll come back to you before we close out. Okay. So Tom, would you please?
The last time we were recording was May 13th, and since then we've suffered 6 line of duty deaths. Leslie Leatherman from the Laurel County Fire Department passed away on 5/16 for a unknown medical problem while responding. Charles Murda from the Baltimore City Fire Department passed away also on 5/16 from an unknown medical problem during a training exercise. Simon Williams from the Cleveland Fire Department also on 5/16 from an unknown medical during a training exercise. Mark Dranbauer Jr. from Baltimore City on 5/17 passed away from an unknown medical at a fire scene. David Warfel from the Pennsylvania Department of Forestry in Harrisburg on 5/29 had a heart attack at a training exercise. And Jake Bridges from Hickory, North Carolina on June 5th passed away from an unknown medical after a call. As always, keep the fallen and their families in your thoughts and prayers, and heed the lessons that they've left behind for us. That's all
Thanks,
I got,
Tommy.
Ron.
Thank you, buddy. So before we go, Jack, we have a new feature here on the Backstep. Before we get to you, Tommy, any new books? I don't have anything brand new.
I don't have anything new.
Jack, this is the book club corner. Book club corner.
I got a call from my friend James Salas, the retired fire chief from Roswell, New Mexico, and I got an invite to come down and do their opening keynote at the Chiefs Conference in September. And I was thinking, what the hell am I going to talk about? Well, between the Washington, D.C. Aviation accident in the river there, the Philly plane crash, and as of yesterday, the Air India flight, I got thinking about crew resource management. And Gary Breeze from the IFC was really kind of the impetus of trying to adapt what the aviation industry has been using and make it applicable to fire departments. And I pulled an old book up from 2 guys that I'm very familiar with. Bruce Evans, the fire chief in Bayfield, Colorado, and Jeff Dyer, retired from the U.S. Fire Administration. But they published this a couple of years ago for crew resource management principles and practices. This is kind of the all-encompassing of all the stuff we do to try to make sure we're operating safely in a high-risk environment. This book, along with Chief Dennis Rubin's Choosing the Command, both take those crew resource management concepts and apply them to the fire department. It's not the end-all, catch-all, but it is definitely worth taking a look back and try to remind ourselves of what some of those things are that we can do to help us operate safer.
Sounds good to me, man. Have somebody video that. I want to see you in action, pal. All right. And please wear clothes this time. Please be dressed. He does a lot, Jackie. He does a lot of nude speeches. This guy,
It must be a New Mexico thing.
I still want to be Jack Murphy when I grow up. My fellow
All
New
right,
Jersey
so-
American.
Jack, you're on the hot seat, pal. You ready?
I'm on the hot seat. Well,
The lightning round. Here we go.
the
You ready?
lightning round. Again,
Yes.
encouraging,
What's your favorite color?
firefighters to get more
What's your favorite-
involved. What's that, Ron?
Listen, I got 25 questions for you. What's your favorite color? Real quick. Favorite color?
Green.
Green. What's your favorite fire truck color?
Oh, red.
What's your favorite late night snack?
A martini.
What's your favorite firehouse meal?
My favorite.
Martini. That's great. What's your favorite firehouse meal?
Oh, anything they throw on the table. Really.
Okay.
Some great cooks out there.
And what's your favorite chain restaurant? Chain restaurant.
Don't go there.
You don't go to, okay. What's your favorite type of place or style of food to go out to eat? What do you love to go out to eat?
Little boutique restaurants. Small places.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
What's your favorite sports team?
Oh, hard. I got a couple in New York, Obviously.
Come on, you built
What?
Yankee Stadium, for crying out loud.
Yeah, but that was done by a Met fan. That was me.
Okay. Comfort food. What's your favorite comfort food? Don't say
Oh,
martini.
Italian, man.
Favorite animal?
Dog.
Dog. All right. Engine or truck?
Truck.
Knowing what you know now, if you could go back in time, what advice would you give to a 20-year-old version of Jack Murphy? What would you tell him?
Don't think about the end. Live every day through the job. All right. Don't be planning when you're going to retire. There's so much to learn out there. Stay on top of everything. And the little slogan I have is be in the job, not on the job. And in the job, we talk about this. Get out there, even on your own dime. All right. Do that. I just went up to, invited me up to Providence here, where I live in this area. A guy from stationed in Ladder 4 Manhattan's doing the talk. All right. It's packed. It's like 80 people on a Friday night. 80 people. I picked up something, Augustine little nugget on how to read a topography building from the back. It's 3 stories here. On the back, it's 8. How to read it and transfer that up front. You never stop.
It's never over. It's never over.
And I went up and talked to him. I had no idea. He's in Ladder 4 for a while. I talked to Anthony Pascocello. I said, tell him I said he did a good job. All right. You never know who's in the audience. You never know. And the more you take back, the more you learn. The thing at the FDIC, everybody knows I'm involved with that. When I see a group of firefighters, we're all going to ABC class. Well, how about going the rest of the alphabet? Split up.
Yeah.
3 go here, 3 go there. If 3 like that, go bring more back. More you bring back.
When I was going and bringing my crews with me from my different fire departments, I said, not two of you are not allowed to sit in the same class.
Yeah.
You're not allowed.
Yeah.
You got to. If there's 4 of you, 4 different classes, you're going to report back to me at the end of the day. So you got to. There's so much to learn.
Ronnie, I want to close out with paying homage to the late great Bill Gustin. All right, 40 some odd years on the job. You come into your class with a notebook. What am I here for? I'm here to borrow things, and he would take it back. In conversations with him over time, he'd call you up on certain things, and you have a conversation with him. He was always learning, and towards the end of his career, he was big into sprinkler systems and prevention and all this other stuff. Not that he didn't pay attention to it before, but he had a better understanding of what the people behind the scenes are trying to do for the fireground.
Yeah.
And
like most other people, he kind of got it too late in his career. That's the message here today is don't wait till you got 40 years. If you're in the job 2-3 years, now's the time to amass that information and use it to your advantage. I mean, you're right. He set a great example. I'd had conversations with him. He invited me on his podcast 3 or 4 times. So we're talking about certain. He said to me, Ron, I know you got this. This is your thing. I want you to be on. And he called me that week. I did one. He couldn't get on. I don't know if you know the story. He called me that week. He couldn't get on. He had a technical problem. So Mikey Dugan ran the thing. There was 2 other guys on it. We did our hour, whatever it was, and then sure enough, Sunday it lit up on the internet. But that was the last time I spoke to him. And he called me and said, "Hey, can you do this? This is your wheelhouse." Blah blah blah. And yeah. So but you're right. He like all of us, we stand on the shoulders of giants. We do. We just do. And so we can certainly officially dedicate this particular podcast to Bill Gustin and everything he left us over his career. So thank you for that, Jackie. We appreciate it. That's about it, Jack. Thanks for coming on the Backstep with us and talking about this very important subject. Love having you on as always. There's a couple of things coming up. I'd like to just quickly, in the first weekend in October, there's a high-rise 3-day symposium. Jack's going to be speaking, of course, but the FDNY is sponsoring a 3 days. Come and listen to the experts. Come and listen to the guys that do it every single day. Seats are going fast. We only had 300 slots. 210 slots are gone already. So sign up. It's a weekend in Manhattan. There's classes the first day. There's tours of buildings the second day. Third day, we're taking you out to the Fire Academy. We're taking you to the Rock. It's going to be a great 3-day weekend. That's the first weekend. That's October 3, 4, 5. And then October 18th, just as a matter, we don't know if it's going to be public yet. Open to the public, but we're going to be honoring 176 firefighters in New York City that haven't gone on the wall in Emmitsburg at the National Fallen Firefighters Monument. We're doing the actual ceremony in New York City for those families, so we don't have to bring them down to Maryland. So that's happening also in the city a couple of weeks later. Other than that, again, Jack, thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
Tommy, any parting words, sir?
Just everybody stay safe.
Yep.
Be safe, and we'll see you next time on the Backstep. Be safe, everybody. We'll see you.
All right, everybody.
Take care.